Adoption is often painted as a noble act, but beneath the surface, it separates children from their biological families, causing lifelong trauma.
I was sold for $12,000.
In 1978, my adoptive parents paid $20,000 for me.
I cost around $7,000.
I know that I cost $4,500 because my mother told me this every day of my life.
6,800 foster youth came forward with decades long of abuse allegations.
As you guys can read, thousands of children are placed in foster care, but not because they need to, but because CPS agents have incentives of putting kids in foster care.
If the state takes your kids away, you could end up with a big bill for foster care services. And if you don't pay, you could lose your kids again.
Anybody that's worked in foster care, I know y'all have some horror stories because I have several.
Kids who age out of foster care, which means they never got adopted, they never got guardianship, they had no permanency placement. 46% will end up homeless.
Governments in the United States are taking more than $250 million a year from children placed in the foster care system.
If you are planning a bankruptcy or are currently in the middle of one, you should not become a foster parent right now.
Not to be super dark, but my conspiracy theory is that politicians don't want abortion and they instead want you to be putting those kids in foster care systems, aka adoption, so that there can be more kids to traffic.
I haven't had support from the birth father. I'm not super close with my own family and just kind of like picking up the pieces after this.
Oh, child, I don't owe you anything after you turn 18. Actually, go struggle. Go be independent. I'm not going to give you a cent because you need to know how hard you need to work for the things that you've got.
Yes, it does cost money to adopt, but probably not as much as most people think. The most cost-effective way you could do it is by going through the county. Of course, it's going to vary depending on where you live.
But one of the things that's always so funny is when I tell people that I'm adopted. Some people find this question offensive. To me, I just could care less because I'm not.
Now that we've all read the horrors in the Epstein files, are we ready to finally acknowledge former foster youth and adoptees who have been trying to scream at the top of our fucking lungs for decades that the U.S. adoption industry is a supply and demand for-profit trafficking ring that's just a fucking front for adoption?
Correction, adoption should be about the kids and not the adults.
I want to know how much was I and how many people paid how much. Every penny. I want to know.
So about the foreign adoption of Korean children, this was yet another despicable act by the government because it was not a humanitarian effort to take care of kids. It was a business. It was an industry.
So what I'm getting out of this adoption debate is now everyone that's really woke, all of a sudden we support a $1 billion industry that legitimately started, you can go look this up, legitimately started with child trafficking.
It is profitable for states to adopt children out of the foster care system. Every single time a child is adopted, they are kicked back money from the federal government, and that goes into the state's budget.
I just want to tell y'all that each county has an adoption quota, which means that they have a certain number of children to adopt out, or otherwise they will lose additional funding.
The closed adoption discourse that's happening on this app right now has only further solidified my belief in being pro-choice and pro-abortion at this point.
Did you know that if you want to adopt a newborn baby, a baby that's being put up for adoption, you have to pay like $50,000? Doesn't that seem a little weird that you have to pay like $50,000 for a child?
Right, the financial aspect of adoption or legal guardianship through the foster care system. It is different than private adoption. Private adoption, which is typically infants, is very expensive. That's fully out of pocket.
My adoption cost around $60,000, I think including the plane ride, but I'm not sure.
$500.
It cost $9,500.
$20,000. $800.
$16,000.
As a newborn 1979, I cost $2,600.
If you think America is the heart of modern civilization, this story will surely change your mind.
I'm planning on eventually adopting an older kid, but I see a lot of people talking about how harmful adoption recently is, so I'm a little confused.
Jonah was adopted from Ethiopia by a Republican who would eventually become the governor of Kentucky. And today I want to play a game with you called Was Jonah Bevin Adopted so that Matt Bevin could become the governor of Kentucky? Infant adoption is human trafficking. Here's how adoption agencies coerce women into giving them their children and then selling them for tens of thousands of dollars to hopeful adopters.
However, one of the reasons that she's probably frustrated is how expensive private adoption is in the United States.
We are just beginning the process, but we do have a good breakdown of what the fees look like. So I'm going to go through everything and just talk about what all the fees are.
Why does it cost $60,000 to adopt a baby in America?
It's called capitalism. America is maybe the only country in the world that has a privatized child welfare system.
Okay, so this one is for everyone who thinks that you cannot foster and you cannot adopt because you do not have the money to support the child.
Adoption is a multi-billion-dollar industry. Now, adoptions through the foster care system through the state aren't really part of this, but if you adopt through an agency, it costs tens of thousands of dollars.
It's about $40,000 to $50,000 to adopt a kid.
What people don't understand, it's not just for the baby. You're taking care of the birth mother. It takes care of her housing, her medical bills, and like make sure that her recovery is good. Like the agencies make sure they do a good job of taking care of her.
Which is
and
very important.
that's what I care about. I want her to be taken care of.
First of all, the practice of paying birth mother expenses is widely controversial and varies state to state. In some states, you can pay for some things. In some states, you can't pay for some things. And in some states, you can't pay any of these expenses at all. It's important to understand that adoption agencies aren't paying these expenses out of the goodness of their hearts. It's not a form of altruism. These adoption agencies are using expenses as a bait.
If you're going to adopt a child and they were born in the US or overseas, it's going to cost $25 to $50K.
All that work and what did it get me? Why did I do it?
This guy right here is gay, and him and his partner adopted a son. And what the son did proves that same-sex relationships are wrong.
When people ask about adoption, one of the first questions that they have is how much does it cost and how long does it take? And that answer depends entirely on the pathway being pursued under Ontario's Child, Youth and Family Services Act.
I have a friend that paid $25,000 for help navigating the adoption process in Texas. They paid a huge chunk of money just to help them figure out how to get higher on the list for adoption in Texas. So if that exists, there's got to be 32 different ways to do consulting for adoption in this space.
Are you thinking of adopting a child from another country? Here's what could help. First, dive into thorough research about the country you're considering for adoption. Each country has its own set of laws and requirements for adoption, and understanding these can significantly affect the process.
And there are many factors to consider when it comes to understanding the cost of adoption. Primarily, you are paying for very important services in your adoption, so you have to expect that there is going to be a cost involved, especially with private adoption.
They adopted a 9-year-old girl from Russia, hoping to complete their family, but something felt wrong within days. She never slept, just stood at their bedside at night, silently watching. By morning, knives were missing. Doors were found unlocked, as if someone was testing their fear. Then came the moment that shattered everything.
Adoption in 5 levels of difficulty. Level 1, you marry Dave. You want to adopt. You are matched with baby Bill. You adopt Bill. Level 2, you are an alcoholic. Your husband James is a Spurs fan. You have a dysfunctional relationship with James. You have a baby. You name him Bill. The local authorities are concerned with Bill's well-being.
Thousands of children have been confined in private for-profit facilities across the United States. No judge sent them there. No social worker monitors their stay. Parents alone decide to institutionalize their children in what's become known as the troubled teen industry. An Associated Press investigation reveals that adopted children are vastly overrepresented in these places.
Too often, this separation isn't necessary, but driven by financial gain, corrosion, and the demand for children. When people ask, what's the alternative to adoption? Should we let the child die? First of all, don't say that.
Nobody else is talking about it, so I will. LA County just approved a $4 billion settlement after
60,000 children are in foster care in California. 33,000 of those are from Los Angeles County alone. But what is crazy, half of those kids are not even supposed to be in foster care. Whenever a kid is taken away from their home and put into foster care, the county gets $30,000.
My colleague Joseph Shapiro found laws in 12 states that allow this. In North Carolina, it happened to domestic violence victims, incarcerated parents, and even a pregnant 15-year-old who was herself in foster care.
I had a 15-year-old on my caseload in a foster home. He had hit me one day and was like, hey, can I have some money?
Of course, my guy, of course. I'll come bring it by this afternoon. I got a home visit down the road. So I text the foster parent like, hey, I'm going to make a drop off today. He needs some money.
By the time they're 26, only 3% will go to college, only about half will graduate high school or get a GED. Boys who age out of foster care, 5 times more likely than their peers to be arrested.
This is anything but a bureaucratic glitch. It's a legal practice in nearly every single state there is.
This is not about assigning blame or moral failings to you. It's simply about security for the children.
There is a adoption to trafficking pipeline that we're not talking about, where a bunch of kids in the system go missing for no reason. We don't know what's going on.
Have you already? Is the adoption over?
She is due any day at this point.
All right. So tell me about the decision to give her up for adoption.
Yeah, it's a decision I came to really early on in the pregnancy, just due to me wanting the best for her. I want her to have a 2-parent.
Why is it that rich families will say, oh, honey, you can live off of me and however long you need to?
But most of the time, it'll cost under a few $1,000s. A private adoption agency can cost anywhere from $30,000 to $50,000. It is very expensive.
Wait, how much did you cost? Now, I'm not going to say the exact number, but let's just say my parents probably could have gotten a really nice car or put a huge, massive down payment on a house.
That the horrors in the Epstein files are why over a dozen fucking countries have banned the US from adopting from them?
When a multi-billion-dollar industry is predicated on making adults who want children happy, those are the people that the multi-billion-dollar industry will focus on because it's more profitable.
One thing I wish adoptees had it in us is to demand transparency about who profited from our being rearranged.
The Korean government was encouraging the export of babies and children. They were essentially products.
Specifically targeting people of color and impoverished women. That has not really changed his tactics at all, like barely, in how many years that it's been around.
Now, if you think about what's currently happening with the SNAP benefits, and we know that, supposedly they're going to get half for the month of November. And we look at the prices increasing, even with funding half, the prices are going to drastically increase for groceries.
So when I talk about the difference between fostering children and actually adopting children, it is actually a business. I don't care what y'all say. I don't care how y'all put it.
It also goes to show how society sees women, including those in the adoptee community, that they truly don't care about women. They don't care about their body autonomy, and that we're just seen as people who give birth.
There's a marketplace for selling children that are being given up by their biological parents. And yes, there is an answer to it, if you will, and that is foster care, but not everybody wants to take that route, and some people do want to adopt a newborn. And if you want to do that, you have to have a lot of money.
If you are working with the state foster care system, and I believe this is true for every state in the US, all of the cost is covered by the state.
There, a trade in unwanted children exists, and the way they do it is distressing. It's known as rehoming, and when parents decide they no longer want their adopted child, they simply advertise them on websites to lure prospective new parents.
When people think about adoption, hear adoption, they think a child is having a forever home, a child is being loved, a family is becoming complete, which can happen in adoption situations. And people who say they have a great adoption experience, I am generally so happy for them, and I wish you nothing but the best. When people think about adoption, hear adoption, they think a child is having a forever home, a child is being loved, a family is becoming complete, which can happen in adoption situations. And people who say they have a great adoption experience, I am generally so happy for them, and I wish you nothing but the best.
Adoption agencies steal freedom for profit. They assert control over women, either physically, psychologically, or both, in order to get them to relinquish children to the agency. They use coercion tactics like pre-birth matching and offering free housing to expectant mothers in order to trap them into feeling like they owe the agency or the hopeful adopters their children.
And that even when a birth mom backs out and chooses to parent, the people who are adopting are on the hook for a lot of money. Let's talk about it. In the United States, a completed domestic adoption, like you're adopting a child that is in the United States, the average cost is $40,000 to $85,000. I see some agencies quote $30,000 to $50,000, but in my experience with the clients that I have served, it's much more than that usually. It is usually closer to the higher end of things.
For our specific agency, our application fee was $400, so that is just for them to review the application. Our agency requires that we do education classes, which is another $400 per person, so $800. Our first upfront costs were $1,200. The next fee that we will have to pay is the home study fee, and that is $2,200.
The majority of Americans don't understand about our private infant adoption industry is that most of the money being spent, the majority of that $60,000 is not going to paying people's salaries. It doesn't cost $60,000 to get a lawyer, a social worker, and a couple other employees together to facilitate adoptions and sign a few papers.
So something that most people just don't know, they don't understand about foster care and adoption here in California, at least. I'm not sure what it's like in every other city, but in California, this is the way it goes down. When you adopt your foster child.
Now, just look at this. This is for one adoption. How does an adoption agency charge $1,700 for advertising? They spend more on advertising and networking than they do for birth family counseling. And what exactly are these other expenses? And the application and program fee is almost $14,000. If adoption is what's best for the child, then why are they charging tens of thousands of dollars?
It is a way to target vulnerable pregnant people who don't have housing, who don't have any form of medical care, people who are struggling, and convince them that giving us your baby will make those struggles go away.
If you'd like to adopt a child that's born in Canada, it will cost you $15,000 to $20,000. Yes, $15,000 to $20,000.
So this guy is talking about his child, and in the video, he said from day one, it's been him, his male partner, and the child. This kid has only known having two males raising him. That's it, nothing else. And he asked the question, why, when his child gets mad or upset, does he scream for mommy? It's just a little kid.
So, as my colleagues have explained, the public adoption route with the Children's Aid Society generally has no agency fees. However, families still incur fees in different ways. So the home study or the safe assessment that was discussed previously, approximately $1,500 to $3,000 if it's required.
Somebody said this to me the other day. She goes, "Do you know how hard it is for a gay couple to adopt a baby?" And I said, "Sure don't. I have no idea. How hard is it? Is it very hard?" She's like, "Nearly impossible." If anybody created a company that just helped male gay couples adopt babies, usually gay male couples, it's like one of the highest average household incomes. And so I think if somebody just went and interviewed like 100 couples that were trying to adopt right now.
Working with an accredited adoption agency is invaluable. These agencies are experienced in navigating both the adoption process and the child's home country and the necessary steps to ensure that the child can legally enter the U.S. They can provide guidance, support, ensure that all procedures are ethically and legally handled.
In the U.S., there is kind of a range of costs when it comes to infant domestic adoption, meaning not through the foster system, not internationally, but you're adopting from a birth mom in the U.S. who is choosing to relinquish a child, most likely selecting the adoptive parent. This means you'll be paying for your home study, legal services, possibly helping birth mom with some living expenses like housing or medical costs.
She was caught holding her 4-year-old brother over a 30-foot balcony, calm and emotionless. Doctors labeled her a serious danger. The house became a fortress with alarms, cameras, and locked doors.
Adoption is not all that it's cracked up to be, and I would just like to say this is one of the side effects. I have hives all over my chest and neck. I don't know if you can even see it. And I have hives on my on my chest and all over my shoulders and neck because I get them whenever things come up with my adoptive mother. And this happens, I usually throw up with it. I usually get an eye blister, like I get a lip blister sometimes.
The court said Bill will likely suffer significant harm in the future. Bill is taken from you and put up for adoption. Level 3. You are broke. You struggle to provide for Bill. Bill goes to school hungry every day. The local authorities are concerned. They take Bill from you. 5 years later you marry Harry Styles. You are now rich. You ask the court for your child back. Court said it won't be in the child's best interests. Your claim is dismissed. Level 4. You have an affair. You have a baby. You don't want to tell your husband. You want the baby to be adopted.
Adopted kids make up about 2% of American children, but experts estimate that they are 25 to 40% of kids in residential care. One reason for that is a dubious diagnosis called reactive attachment disorder, or RAD. Many of the kids who wind up in these places are told they have RAD, but child psychologists tell us that RAD is an exceptionally rare disorder and applies to kids under the age of 5.
So we wind up having all these children diagnosed with RAD who don't actually they're not anywhere close to the diagnostic criteria for that condition.
But still, there are dozens of facilities across this country that advertise they treat teenagers with RAD. Many of the adoptees we spoke to pointed out that adoption was supposed to spare them.
And second, they missed the whole point. The real question should be, why aren't we addressing the root cause that pushes mothers to give up their children in the first place? Family preservation, through providing necessary resources